Hello and welcome once again to the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, joined by Mick Gillispie and Kevin Reichard. Mick, how are you?
Doing great, man. Down in Fairhope again, preparing for yet another hurricane. So since I moved here, I've been bringing the hurricanes in about once a month. So this one's Hurricane Zelda. And they told me last time that Hurricane Sally wasn't going to be anything to worry about. It was something to worry about. So Zelda's somewhere out in the Gulf right now, and we'll find out. Besides that, man, ready for the World Series tonight and doing well.
Kevin Reichard, how about you?
I am waiting for them to name it Hurricane after you, Mick. You seem to bring them on. So I think at some point it should be Hurricane Mick and hope it causes maximum damage. The wrath of Mick here. I am good. I'm ready for the World Series game tonight. Cheering for those Rays, those scrappy little underdogs.
Yeah.
So last time that we had our broadcaster chat last week, we started doing a little bit of trivia. And let me give you some trivia questions to lead back into the World Series. Do you know that there have only been one American League player and one National League player to win the World Series, win the MVP, the Gold Glove, and the Silver Slugger awards in the same season? Can you name either the American Leaguer or the National Leaguer?
Say that again. The what?
There's only been one National Leaguer and one American Leaguer to have his team win the World Series and to have him win the MVP award, the Gold Glove award, and the Silver Slugger award all in the same year.
Well, the Gold Glove is the one that trips you up.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously a Mickey Mantle? No?
Not Mickey Mantle.
That would be my best guess for the American League, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. I was gonna say Chris Bryant, and then I'm like, he didn't win a Gold Glove. So, there's not many guys that have won the World Series in the MVP. Frank Robinson obviously did it, Triple Crown winner, but I don't think he won a Gold Glove. So it's got to be someone that is excellent defensively.
Wasn't Kirby Puckett, was it?
It was not Kirby Puckett.
Was he an MVP?
I believe he was, yes.
Was he?
To give you a hint on the American Leaguer before we get to the National Leaguer, the American Leaguer is playing for the National League right now in the World Series.
Oh, Mookie Betts.
Mookie Betts it is.
Yeah. So how about the National Leaguer? It's got to be somebody old school. But how long have they had that Silver Slugger award around? Do we know that? I mean, I don't think it goes back too far.
No, it doesn't go all the way back. The 1950s?
Okay.
Was Don Newcombe the Silver Slugger? So, yeah, it doesn't go back all that far, and I can even give you the position to see if that helps.
Yeah,
third
go ahead.
Base.
All right, third base. Brooks Robinson.
No,
he
so
wasn't
now
an
we're
MVP.
looking National League.
Oh yeah, National League. Yeah, he wasn't and I don't think he won MVP either.
I'm not looking it up, so I'm playing it honest. I have no idea. Now I got to skim through a list of best third basemen.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Don't tell us yet. Let me just give me a couple more minutes here. All right, let's see. Third base, MVP. Mike Schmidt.
Boom.
Yep.
Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah. It's like when you get to third base, like there really hasn't been that many great third basemen that could be an MVP. And it's weird how you look at a position on the field, and that's one of those positions where you really don't have a lot of like memorable star players, which is crazy to me.
At one point, I remember just in trying to name the greatest third baseman in baseball history, it was Pie Traynor of the Pirates for decade upon decade upon decade. And then suddenly we got George Brett, we got Mike Schmidt, Brooksy came about, and the 1960s, 70s, and 80s suddenly started to supply better third basemen.
Right. Ron Santo, you can't forget Ronnie.
Yes.
He's now finally a Hall of Famer. But you're right. I mean, like, the debate when I was a kid was, who's better, Santo or Robinson? And I think the only reason that Santo was always kind of looked at second compared to Robinson was just the fact that Robinson played longer, because when they were both excellent defensively. Brooks Robinson also had those World Series where he was just incredible, including the 1970 World Series where his defensive plays just really took over the entire series. I mean, wasn't it Johnny Bench that said, you know, after he kept stealing hits away from him, you got if you were the MVP, you got a Corvette or something. And he's like, look, if he wanted a Corvette that bad, I'd buy it for him myself, you know? But there really hasn't been that many. You know, Arenado's one right now. Chris Bryant's been good, but defensively, I'd say he's average when you compare him to like Ronnie Santo and, you know, and Brooks Robinson and those kind of guys in Arenado.
We just saw two of the greats retire. Scott Rowland is now up for the Hall of Fame vote, and Adrian Beltre is one of the greatest third basemen ever.
Yeah.
All right, so there's one trivia question for you.
Good one.
My
That was a
father
good one.
posed that for me after watching the show last week, and we were calling out for trivia questions. So he gave me a call. He goes, try this one on for size.
Good
Mookie
one.
Betts, whose initials are MLB. Here's another one for you, and this one's going to be weird, but it's going to lead into what I wanted to briefly discuss with the World Series before we get into more complexities and what has jumped out to the two of you. Okay, so I'm going to give you a list of names. These are 6 Hall of Famers. Rod Carew, George Brett, Eddie Murray, Tony Lazzeri, Al Lopez, and Frank Chance. These 6 Hall of Famers are the only Hall of Famers in baseball history to end a baseball game, to win a baseball game by doing what? And the last person in all of baseball to end a game by doing this was Marquise Grissom back in 1997. So what specific thing did they do to win the game?
Steal home.
Boom.
Eddie Murray stole home.
Eddie Murray stole home to walk things off of the Orioles in 1979.
Wow, he had speed. It's before I can really remember.
It was a double steal, wasn't it? As I recall.
Yes, it was. Yeah. He's one of my favorite players, by the way. I mean, like I was in the backyard trying to be, you know, Eddie Murray and Andre Dawson. Those were my 2 guys. You know, like I just loved Eddie though. Like I loved Eddie's look. I loved the fact that he switched hit with power from both sides of the plate. If Eddie had played in this era, he would have hit, I think he could have hit 700 home runs. I mean, he's in there with these big ballparks, you know, like the guys throw harder now, so you can hit it further.
No.
The juice baseball, sorry guys.
No problem. No problem. Run that list by me again, by the way, Jesse. I knew because of Rod Carew.
Well done.
That was the tip-off.
So Eddie Murray in 1979, George Brett in 1976, Carew in 1972, and then you got to go all the way back to Al Lopez in 33, Tony Lazzeri in 1931, push 'em up Tony, and Frank Chance in 1906, the peerless leader for the Chicago Cubs.
So that would have been Tinkers to Evers to Chance era. Wow,
Yes.
That is going back quite a ways.
Here's some weird baseball trivia that sticks in my mind. Do you know that Johnny Evers pronounced his last name Evers, although now we would look at it and say Evers? The same thing, Mount Everest, the gentleman that it was named after pronounced his last name Evers. So it's funny how pronunciations can change over the years. As we get Mick back, though, hello, Mick, once again. We were talking about Eddie Murray.
Yeah, somebody called on here. Can you believe that? Yeah, someone called, and I tried to turn them off, and it hung up on you guys. No, but anyway, yeah, I'd be in the backyard, and I wanted to be able to hold back on the changeup like Eddie always did from the left side and then hit those home runs right down the line on one knee. Yeah, he was a great player. I love Eddie Murray.
Right now, Mick, your camera angle has you top side. So there we are.
Go. Perfect.
So just to talk about the steal of home a little bit more, because bringing me into the World Series, that was the first thing that jumped out at me about the Fall Classic was I'd never seen an attempted straight steal of home live before, in person, on TV, whenever. I'd heard about it. I had had friends see it and have the chance to broadcast it. It's the Jackie Robinson play for me, but Manuel Margot trying to steal a home for the Rays against Clayton Kershaw was the very first time I had actually seen it live.
I've been in games before, calling games where a guy tries to steal home. I think it's one of the best plays in baseball, and I think that teams should do it more. I thought it was a great call by the manager. I mean, by Kevin Cash. It just didn't work, but it was still a great call. With the shift, you can get a bigger lead now. And when you have a left-hander on the mound, I've seen Javi Baez. I saw him do it when he was in the minor leagues, and of course he's done it in the big leagues too. But when you have the shift the way that it is now, the third baseman's off the line, and you got a left-handed pitcher, you can do it. And the other thing, like Javi's really good at, he gets the runner at first base just to catch the pitcher's attention for a second, and you can't get him out. And I'm sure you guys have seen that before. And that's a planned play. That's something that they work on. He'll say, hey, look, if this situation comes up, he'll send a nod across the field or something just to let that runner know. And that runner will just like kind of twitch or do something, catch that pitcher's attention, and Javi's going on that. It's just an incredible play. I love it. It's exciting. Kershaw had to do everything perfect to get him out at home. But I think it also sends a message to your team that we're going to do everything we can to win. We're not going to leave these guys on third base and not try to get them home. So I thought that was a cool one.
The aftermath of the play, with people breaking it down saying, what could have helped it go right? How did it go wrong? Because it was that close. As you said, the runner on first base, if that runner breaks, if that runner takes a hard step toward second, anything to draw Kershaw's attention a little bit more. It has come out, I believe, Manny Margot decided to do this on his own, that there was no play in effect. Otherwise, that runner from first might have broken. Because there are not many fans in the stands, Kershaw was able to hear his teammates shouting out. If he doesn't hear things in time, Margot is stealing home. And then the step off the rubber and the throw to the catcher have to be perfect. I remember, I think it was Lourdes Gurriel Jr. for the Blue Jays stealing home against Chris Sale, and Sale rushed the throw. If the throw is not a good one to the catcher, you're in trouble. So that Kershaw kept his wits about him and was able to execute. What a marvelous bang-bang play.
Yeah. Well, if the Rays don't do stuff like that, they're not going to win. Even though they didn't win that game, I just feel like the Dodgers are such a heavy favorite, and they're just such a better team with better players that they have to steal a game like that, and it'll be interesting. I'm not counting the Rays out. They're better. They're actually playing better than I thought they would play in this series. But when I saw that, I said, if I was them, that's exactly the way that I would go at every single opportunity in this World Series. And they still might win it.
Yeah, the Rays are the little piranhas right now, nibbling away. And over time, that can be a very annoying trait on the part of an underdog team. And, I think one aspect here that we should follow tonight is, will the Rays continue to play like there's no pressure on them whatsoever? Like they're loose. The Dodgers are fairly loose themselves, but the Rays are like, we're the underdog. We know our place in the food chain. So we'll come and nibble away, and we'll see what happens.
One thing that bothered me about the Rays in the series was up until the wild one, Game 4. It felt to me like Game 1, when the Rays got down and things started falling apart, that was it for them. Then Game 2, the Dodgers went bullpen game, and the Rays said, bullpen game, we can play with the Dodgers. And then Game 3, Charlie Morton stayed on the mound for inning after inning, giving up runs because, as we were told, this is the Rays' plan, which all that meant to me was, okay, the Rays are readying another huge bullpen day, and they're virtually conceding this game against Walker Buehler. That the Rays in advance had said, here are the games that we're going to compete in. Here are the games that we can't compete in. So I felt game after game that I could tell, based on the relievers that the Rays go to, based on their pitching changes, whether they're actually going for it or not. And Game 6, they're now ready. They've got their relievers ready. They've got their ace ready. So I'm hoping that they force a Game 7.
Anything can happen if they do it.
Yeah, it's a tale of two bullpens, isn't it? And I'll give the TV commentators a lot of credit early on when they noted the same thing you did. In fact, they said, basically said the Rays are throwing in the towel. They've got the B bullpen guys coming in. They're saving the A for tomorrow.
Okay. When they went to the A bullpen, though, how about that Game 4? How did the two of you enjoy Game 4 of the World Series?
Yeah, it's unforgettable. I mean, one of the best games that, you'll ever see. And it's depending on how this World Series ends, if the Rays win, that's their Tito Landrum moment. If they lose, and if the Orioles had lost in 83, no one would know about Tito Landrum. No one would care. It would be like, hey, kind of something that happened. But when you win the championship, those moments, they last forever. They're immortalized. So, it could be just like a footnote in the Dodgers finally getting back to the top after, winning in 88. Or that could be in Tampa Bay lore, the play that changed everything. It's going to be really interesting to see. But I thought it was as good of a World Series as you're going to see.
Neither team's choking. It's interesting. I mean, that's the Kershaw play is sort of this World Series in a nutshell, isn't it? Right call, right player. It's not as though he failed to steal home. It's that he was tossed out at home by a perfect play.
Well, Kevin, I would argue that a Dodger fan would say, we choked at the end of Game 4. We booted it in center field, and then Will Smith didn't catch Max Muncy's throw at the plate. Otherwise, Arozarena is done. We're going to extra innings. But the fact that they came right back and they won Game 5, and they won Game 5 in such a way that the Rays really weren't in it at the end, that Kershaw was money, and the Dodgers bullpen never let the Rays back in the game after they went to the pen, and May and Trinan. That, to my mind, what a follow-up to the way that they lost Game 4.
Mm-hmm.
Came right back. And, the Dodgers aren't going to be the defensive team the Rays are either. I think that's very true. I think the Dodgers have let some free agents go in the past 3 years, like catcher that were Gold Glovers that they let go because of money. And you make those decisions when you run a big league operation.
Yeah.
Although Bellinger have made some pretty great plays.
And players, they're going to take their eyes off the ball. It's still fun and action packed, and I think that despite the numbers, this is a World Series that the baseball world kind of needed.
And I was going to say, guys, too, I had a conversation with Jared Kingery. He's one of the all-time best pitchers the Smokies have had, but I went to college with him, and he's a good friend of mine. And he said, I don't really watch a lot of baseball anymore, but I did watch some in this postseason. And he's like, the game's so different. And I said, that was really on display last game of the World Series, because, here you have these young, hard-throwing guys that are just trying to overpower everyone and try to strike everybody out with Glasnow. And then here's Kershaw, who's old school. He's mixing up his pitches. He's dropping curveballs in. He's changing eye levels. He's pitching. Throwers versus pitchers. And we were talking about how right now, and Jared has worked in baseball like with high school kids, and he was just talking about the kids that get drafted, and that that's kind of what they're looking for, these guys that throw 100, and that guys like Greg Maddux might not get an opportunity anymore, And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I don't think that's true. I just think it'll be certain organizations. We still believe in someone that can get pitch to contact outs. But I said, look, man, what they're looking at are numbers that say, hey, if you strike the guy out, they're not doing anything positive. All these analytics, right? Shifts, analytics. You got a ton of strikeouts. But what I found most interesting about it, and I'll be honest, I was pulling for Kershaw, and I'm pulling for the Dodgers because of Kershaw. It was amazing to me to see that type of baseball with everything else going on still work, and I loved it. I thought he pitched a heck of a game. They could have left him in maybe a little longer. They didn't want to. He needed this for his legacy. They win the World Series. He might be the MVP, but he'll get that ring. And I hope I don't like the direction that the game's going. So it was kind of nice to see the way that it's always been done kind of work. Nothing against Glasnow, who's a great pitcher, but it was just different, It was just different ways of getting out.
6'8" guy throwing with 100-mile-an-hour fastball and the curveball that he has. I've got I've got a hypothesis why the game is going in that direction. But first, with Clayton Kershaw, with the reputation that he brought into this postseason, and with, I would say, by and large, the majority of people, regardless of whether they're cheering for the Dodgers or not, cheering for him, the only thing that comes to my mind in my lifetime memory is Phil Mickelson, who had the reputation of choking in the biggest stage, and people just wanted to see him win it and didn't want to see things go sour for him. And when he finally won the Masters, there was just this feeling of, yes, for Phil. I feel like it's the same sort of thing that if the Dodgers win it, that there will be this massive outpouring of relief for Clayton Kershaw and joy, vicarious joy for him. Is there any other example, any other comparison that comes to your mind?
I got one. I grew up in a NASCAR family. You know, we watched NASCAR all the time, and there was this driver named Dale Earnhardt. Called him the Intimidator, and he won everything. I mean, he won championships. He won this and that, but he couldn't win Daytona. And it was late in his career when he finally won that Daytona race, the Daytona 500, which, you know, they call the Super Bowl of racing. At least back then they did, you know. And it was just like when he finally won that Daytona, all the other drivers were even happy for him. And I'm sure that you guys might remember, someone watching might not. But this guy was there's no comparison of NASCAR or race car drivers to what Dale Earnhardt was when he was alive, particularly late in his career. As famous as any athlete in this country, even Michael Jordan, I think. I mean, the guy was just like an icon. But he got that, but he never had that win. And then when he finally got it, it was just the same thing. Like everybody was just kind of pulling for him. And the crazy thing is that he was in position to win that race a few times in his career, and he wrecked at the end. So he was close, but that's my comparison. I'm sure you got one too, Kevin.
Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was on top of the world, invincible, and then his back gave out. He sort of disappeared from the scene. When he came back, he was a different golfer. And I think when he won that Masters after so many years of not winning, I think a lot of people felt the same way they felt Mickelson put on that green jacket. Same sort of situation where it's a weird world where Tiger Woods becomes a sentimental favorite after dominating the sport. But it just proved the fragility of a career. It showed the human side of it. And even I was cheering for Tiger. You know, I thought it was great he could make the comeback. I thought, you know, I was always kind of bored when Tiger won everything because, you know, he's going to win more majors than Jack Nicklaus. It's like, okay, well, yeah, he should the way he tees off. And then to be hurt like that and to work so hard to come back is truly a great story.
Yeah, John Elway. Remember John Elway winning that Super Bowl? Like when I was a kid, he was just get to the Super Bowl and his team would just get wiped out, you know? And he was right at the end when he won. And he ended up winning two.
Yeah.
But it was like right at the end of his career. I remember that same feeling, like where you're like, this guy's so big and he hadn't won it, and then he did.
Peyton Manning, you know, years of futility until he finally got a big break and turned from the lovable loser into a winner.
Funny how that works. And on Dale Earnhardt, somebody should name a minor league baseball team after him.
Oh, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go near that twisted story of ownership of the name and trademarks and rights and family squabbles. And I'll tell you, racing's the last major sport, given how big buck it is, where personalities still rule the day. And if you look at the Kannapolis paper, Salisbury, you'll see how the Intimidator's name played out with the family of the Intimidator's remaining family, and it sort of is a sad commentary on what should be an untarnished legacy.
I want to go back though to Jerry Kingery. I think this is my hypothesis. Back in the day, when he was pitching and before that, you'd hear about umpires would give the highest strike, umpires would give the low strike, but by and large it was, is an umpire giving you the corner or not? How wide is the plate? How thin is the plate? And it very much the Tom Glavine strike zone, the Eric Gregg strike zone for Livan Hernandez. So it very much is, how wide it was. And then when they started putting in the eye that shows what the strike zone is in reality, how that changed things was that you could no longer get that strike half an inch off the corner, inside corner, outside corner. You couldn't get that. You had to actually be on the outside or inside corner, but that umpires now had to give the high strike and had to give the low strike. And the first thing this led to is all the sinker ballers pitching at the knees and lower. And now we've seen this leading to all these pitchers working four-seam fastballs at the top of the zone. So
yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, if you're a pitcher who has great soft stuff, if you're a Jamie Moyer or a Tom Glavine or whoever you are who's a smart pitcher, you worked so well in going away, 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 in, away. And you just can't do that anymore if you're not getting that outside corner strike.
Yeah, the other part of it too, and it's funny you bring that up because we had this was a big part of our conversation. He was talking about where he said the game's different, and I said you're talking about all the four-seamers, and I said that I feel like the four-seamers are because there's the swing path guys, you know, like, hey, I want to get the ball in the air. I said when you played, everybody wanted to hit line drives. I said now. And so the way you combat that is you throw the high fastball. And he said, when I threw a high fastball and I tried to live up there, they went a long way. And I said, and that's probably why the home runs are going so far now, you know, and you got so many more home runs, but you also get a lot of outs up there. But I agree too. It's the umpiring as well. He told me that he didn't like the box because it distracts him from seeing where the pitch is. I love the box. Yeah. I love it.
It's amazing, actually, when you see the box to see how right umpires get it, how often it happens. Where in the past you'd have a broadcaster sort of question the results or fans, you know, in the 10th row of the mezzanine booing the pitch. And then you see it on TV and you realize, yeah, it was a strike. Or no, he did miss that one.
Something that I enjoy that I'm learning more about, and I learned a lot about in 2019, so I'm catching up, is how spin rate helps on a four-seam fastball. That if you're a pitcher with a high spin rate on your four seam, that helps it defy gravity longer. And so it gives that optical illusion of a rising fastball. Walker Buehler is a great example. The Rays were talking about, and the broadcasters were talking about what the Rays had told them, how if the pitch seemed to start up, you got to watch out because it's going to end up around your shoulders. And it's not actually rising like a softball pitch would. It's the optical illusion caused by the spin rate. We had a pitcher named Joey Murray who threw 87, 88, 89, but because of his spin rate on his four-seam fastball, it never sank the way the batter was anticipating it sinking. Mm-hmm. So that idea of being able to measure a pitcher's four-seam spin rate, and the batters are just getting that same optical illusion that led us to call a fastball a rising fastball, hopping fastball, a fastball with late life back in the day.
Yeah.
So in about 3 years, we're going to see a whole minor league system that's learning how to do this stuff right now hit the major leagues. And the game's going to be different in 3 years. That's one big reason why.
Or, Kevin, it's going to be the next thing. Right? Because we went sinker, now we're on four-seam. I remember taking on the Houston Astros pitchers. The Quad Cities River Bandits take on the Lansing Lugnuts. And every single pitcher for the River Bandits, it felt like, threw 70 to 80% breaking ball. It was slider, 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 curve, curve, curve. And every now and then you get a fastball, but you wouldn't really get it. Think about the way that Lance McCullers pitches. Because the whole idea that establish your fastball first, they were bringing the philosophy of you don't need to establish your fastball if the batter can't hit a good breaking ball.
Batters will catch up to that, though. I mean, that's sort of a trademark Class A sort of low A situation, and eventually that's got to change. You know?
Lance McCullers makes it work at the major league level. So it's one of those things where I think everybody has their own separate theory, and I prefer when people don't copycat and when they come up with their own theory.
Well, the technology will impose more changes as we go along because it's only going to get better in terms of slow-mo, in terms of analytics. That, you know, it would be a fun story to do, and I think I will do this, is, you know, where will the game be in 3 years, both from the fan side and from the player side? And it's already changing from the fan side even more. Next year we'll have more cameras. We will have 5G, more 5G. You're going to be able to, basically feel like you're standing behind the pitcher at some point during a game broadcast. And all this tech is just utterly fascinating. If you like tech. Now, Mick, I'm sure you're going to tell me the tech sucks and that you're old school, and I certainly understand that.
Yeah, some things I like and some things I don't like. The Marquee Sports Network had this Javi cam, they called it. It was like a camera that they had at the shortstop position in spring training, and it was pretty cool. It was a device that gave you like a look from ground level of some of the plays that he would make there, and I thought that was cool. You know what? Sometimes we overdo it, but there's nothing better than having that home plate view in baseball, where you can see, the pitcher and the batter and all that stuff. I'm not going to poo-poo anything until I see it, but I loved it when Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo were mic'd up during spring training, but they made the segment, they were into it. It was really funny. That's a spring training game. I'm more, the things that I don't like are, I'm soured on the shift. I don't like seeing these low batting averages. I don't like all the relievers. I think the 3 batter minimum is a good thing. Because it's making these guys have to pitch more. I don't like at all an opener. I hate it. I feel like having a starting rotation is part of the game, and it should be part of the game. I don't want to have an opener. I don't like that. And, and I guess just because, some of this stuff that they're doing, they go on analytics and they're like, oh, we can do this, we can do this. It kind of takes away from the tradition of the game. It's like they're taking, baseball and they're turning it into something else, So I don't know if like in the NBA, where they kind of outlawed some of the zones and stuff. It's like, look, yeah, you can do this and it works, and goaltending works, but it's not good for the game itself. So I hope that there's kind of I don't want bigger bags, I don't want the mound to come closer, further back or higher. I want to keep that the same. I don't like a runner at second base in extra innings. I don't like 7-inning doubleheaders. I just don't and I get it for this year with COVID and everything. I definitely was smart enough to say, okay, once I saw teams kind of having to go out and come back in, that it was actually a really smart move, just because you're just trying to get these games over with. But I hope that these things, I don't want the DH in the National League. I still want the batters to hit. I want that differentiating the two leagues, that differentiate, having the pitchers bat. It's a different game when you do. So differential. Sorry, guys. I can't talk right now.
Kevin, how about you? What do you not like?
I actually like the DH in the National League. I think it levels the field, and I think it's inevitable. Anyway, I'm not a fan of the 7-inning doubleheaders either. I'm with Mick on that. If you're going to play, you should play. I loved the extra inning rule, though. There's nothing more boring than the top of the 13th inning during a 2-2 game, and teams have no energy left after a long day. I love that runner on second base. We've talked about it. The fact that it's a new look for the game and how it's played, and I think every once in a while we need that. I guess I'm looking more forward to the future of the game, where you get even more access to the players, where you get even more access to what they're thinking, maybe, where you do have embedded cameras everywhere, and you have the bandwidth to really see all that stuff in high def. So that's why I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to be very transitional. NBA is already miles ahead on this stuff. They're looking at virtual reality courtside. They're already looking at goggles and Oculus stuff with Facebook. I think that's the trend. In a weird way, it humanizes the game. You know, I think that's why these great I think that's why baseball worked as a fan this past year, is you could actually, more cameras in the ballpark, more high def cameras meant you could see players more. You could hone in on their faces as they're getting ready to pitch. You can see players prep for everything. I just think that we're going to see a lot more change than we even can imagine right now coming on the game experience.
The one thing that I would vent about, the one thing that I do not like, and I do not like how pervasive it was in the postseason and now into the World Series, I do not like bullpen games. I do not like Johnny Holstaff in an
me neither.
game.
I understand the strategy. I mean, it's a strategy that reeks of desperation in many ways, despite the spin they put on it. And I don't like it either. And I think if you ask a manager, that would still not be their preferred course, no matter what the stats people say, because there's no mental energy to having, you know, even someone who goes out there and battles for 5 innings and throws 110 pitches. That's a boost to teammates if they do that. And having 2 to 3 innings from your starter just says we're already sort of giving up the ghost here. So let's just play the game and maybe we'll win, but bullpen games are already got the white flag hoisted.
It's like an all-star game. New pitcher every inning, constant pitching changes. I don't like it. I don't think it allows us to build relationships with pitchers where we get to root a pitcher on. There's a lot that I specifically don't like about it, but one of the specific things is the Dodgers have an enormous team salary. The Yankees have an enormous team salary. And these teams don't have 4 healthy starting pitchers in the post. That the Yankees went opener against the Tampa Bay Rays with J. Happ following. It boggled my mind that, okay, the Rays are doing it because the Rays, with their resources, do not have the starting pitchers. They don't trust Blake Snell to get through 5. But you're the Dodgers, so what are we doing here?
Hey, you could always cut amount of pitching that you allow them to have. You know, like take slots away to make it to where, you know, you have to have a starting rotation. The starting rotation is as historic as the game itself. And it kind of goes back to my point, you know, like, can you do it? Yes. But does it make the game better? No, it doesn't. You know what makes the game great? It's having 4 pitchers that win 20 games on the same roster, on the same rotation, right? McNally, Cuellar, Palmer, and Dobson, right? That's what's great. You know what's great? Is having the same team win 14 straight division titles with guys like Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine, and then insert whoever you want, you know, Mills, Avery, or whoever. Like, that's what baseball is all about. The Fergie Jenkins and the Nolan Ryans. Like, these guys, like, they've figured out kind of like it's like cheat codes in video games. Like, you know, hey, it's in there, you can do it, but it doesn't make the game anymore. You know, and I agree with you guys both. Like, having this guy, look, I'm matching up against Kevin game 1. Mono at it. Jesse's my catcher. And I don't know who your catcher is, Kevin, but we're going back. That's what baseball is supposed to be about. I remember as a kid, like, you would put like the starting rotation in there and you would match it against the other team's starting rotation, you know, like having the openers and the bullpen. It's just like, I don't know. I just hate it. Like, can you do it? Yeah. But does it make it a better game? And baseball's been a great game. I mean, think about how long it's been going. You know, I hope that there's a way I hope that they look into this stuff and try to do something about it where it doesn't turn into, you know, what we're seeing right now on a small scale, bigger scale.
And then, there's also Spawn and Sane and Ray for Rain. You know, there's been lots of very successful teams with 2 starters.
Right.
In the rotation, 87 Twins, Burt Blyleven and Frank Viola, and, you know, that was the pitching staff. You know, so I love the idea of the 4-man solid rotation, and successful teams have certainly done that. The Orioles, notably. But teams are built differently than these in this era than they were back when the Orioles were dominant. I mean, they kept players around for, decades. And
Palmer.
the turnover with the major league team these days, it's free agents come and go. Players are not bound to their teams like they were back in the day.
Yeah. It's hurt the game. I think it's hurt the game, not on a regional scale, but on a national scale. Because I think like when you have like a national following, people like Derek Jeter being on the Yankees or Cal Ripken being on the Orioles. It's like those kind of guys like Chipper Jones on the Braves. It's like, hey, look, here comes Chipper Jones is coming to town. Like no matter where it is, people are coming to see it. I guess Mike Trout's that guy, maybe Mookie Betts now, but they're both so well.
I don't think Betts is.
I don't know, right? I mean, who would it be? I really don't have one, right? And I just feel like we're always going to love baseball because we love it. We grew up playing it. We love, you love writing about it. You love broadcasting it. I can't get enough of it. But I feel like if you're in a market that doesn't have a major league team, or even some that do, kids really aren't into baseball as much anymore. And I think that part of it is that, like, there's not like that iconic figure that, like, if you were growing up and Mickey Mantle was, on the Yankees, I mean, not only did he have just the best name ever, but also the fact that, here's a guy who was larger than life on the same team forever, like represented like the game and this particular team. So I don't know how you fix that in free agency, but I feel like there's this, like, you got regional baseball, look, baseball is still really popular in Chicago. It's popular in St. Louis. It's popular in New York. But it's not that popular in Alabama, and it's not that popular in South Dakota, and it's not that popular in other places that don't necessarily have like a link to the team. And it wasn't always like that. And you look at the NFL, and the NFL is popular in all those places, probably for a different reason. I'd say fantasy football, and also it's easy to watch. But I would say fantasy football keeps kind of everybody engaged in it no matter what, because you do it at work or something. I don't know, but
baseball's hard to bet on.
Yeah, it is hard to bet.
Compared to football, you can have there's a very understandable betting system in football that when you look at baseball may not translate to the same ease of use.
Good point. Very good point.
I do think that the Dodgers are marketable because Clayton Kershaw is a forever Dodger, because Mookie Betts is a legitimate superstar, and they've got other guys who you could make the same case for, whether it's a Corey Seager, whether it's a Cody Bellinger. And Walker Buehler, you can make the case that he is the new up-and-coming best pitcher in baseball. And it's been fascinating to watch the rise of Randy Arozarena for the Rays.
Yeah, really.
It'll be interesting to see next year with some fans in the stands who's going to be a solid road draw. Traditionally the Yankees, the Dodgers have always been the best road draws as they go out. Rays, not so much.
San Diego Padres.
That's the stat that's going to be interesting when we convene next year at the All-Star break. Let's examine the road draws and see if there's been any changes in the hierarchy. Is anyone challenging the Yankees, Cubs, and Dodgers? Giants used to be a solid road draw. That's tapered off now. And I think we should set up a calendar appointment right now and discuss that in July to see if there's been a change. Because if anyone's going to change, it's going to be the Padres.
I hope they get Trevor Bauer. Can you imagine them with some more pitching?
They are very close, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Little experience, maybe one better arm.
Well, the fact that Dinelson Lamet, I think, is a legit pitcher, and he went down. And then they never really got anything from Mike Clevenger, and he's a legit pitcher. It wouldn't take much. Yeah, that key addition. And I would absolutely be in favor of saying, okay, I'll pick the Padres next year.
Well, there you can probably
Yeah,
make
the
that for
problem
your
is that
own
they're in the
pretty
same
soon.
division as the Dodgers.
I've got the thesauruses behind me. Are you ready to do a lingo for this
Absolutely.
chat? So, Mick, you brought up Little League. You brought up the lowest levels of baseball. So that makes me turn my attention to, we were talking about steals of home. They give the fact that the last steal of home in the World Series before Margot attempted it was 2002 Brad Fulmer. I looked it up. It was a Little League steal of home. So talking about the Little League steal of home and then the Little League home run. The Little League steal of home, the Little League double steal, meaning you send that runner from first, the catcher throws down, and the runner from third just waltzes in. The old Little League double steal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I don't count that the same as a straight steal of home.
No, and Brad Fulmer was not exactly the most fleet of foot players out there. So the fact that he stole home, he probably should have that moment framed and photographed and framed, because it should be an inspiration to every other slow first baseman DH out there.
Alejandro Kirk made the major leagues this year for the Blue Jays, so people could see he's 5'8", 265. He stole home in his second game with the Lugnuts. Little League double steal. So yeah, I completely agree. Like, an inside the park home run is different from an outside the park home run. That I would love for there to be a way that I could say, okay, steal of home, but show me the straight steal of home. Show me the Margot attempt, the Robinson successful.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a bit, and Javi Baez does them. They're just different.
And then the Little League home run, which is the batter scores by virtue of errors. Whoever's throwing it around, whoever's kicking it around, you start at home, you finish at home, you circle the bases. It's a Little League home run.
Usually with the outfielder leaping for the ball and missing and skidding about 6 feet this way while the ball goes that way, and it just sort of, you're right, bounces in the corner.
Could be a bunt, and the catcher throws it away down the right field line, and the right fielder throws it away toward third base. And at the end of it, you need to give the guy oxygen.
Well, part of it's the whim of the scorer too, isn't it? You have to have it close enough where you don't get an error, but yet hit hard enough where the scorer is not going to incur the wrath of anyone by negating the inside.
Oh, no, Kevin. In the Little League home run, in my definition, there's no dispute. There are errors.
There is. It's always an error.
You have to have errors for a Little League.
Yeah, you have to. Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a nice little baseball lingo for you. Mick, because we've got Alabama football coming up, would you like to choose a great football term?
Oh, wow. Slobber knocker. I don't even know if that's I just remember when the XFL came and they put, what is his name? The wrestling announcer.
Good old JR.
JR, yeah, the barbecue sauce guy.
Jim
I mean, he's a great wrestling announcer. He's still doing it. But football, it just, it just didn't catch on, the slobber knocker. But every time I see like a big hit, that kind of pops into my head.
You could not have a slobber knocker in baseball.
No.
Do you think the announcers are sort of warned not to glorify plays like that anymore, though? I mean, everyone's very concerned when there's a hard hit with the helmet first, and it's fine to take the violence out of the game, but sometimes a hard hit is a deserved hard hit.
Okay, so Mick, I want to hear from you. My perspective is no, that if there's an injury, then everybody gets very quiet and concerned. I'll give you the Washington-Dallas game. There was a play in the game where Washington blitzed linebacker Cole Holcomb. Zeke Elliott tried to pick up the blitz, and Holcomb ran through him to sack Dalton. And it was such hard, vicious, awesome contact. Everyone was fine at the end, so the announcers could really relish in it and enjoy it. Then there was the dirty hit by John Bostic on Andy Dalton that ended his game, and we'll see Dalton's status moving forward. That was a dirty hit and dangerous. So I think it very much is what type of hit and how are the players react? Were there any injuries that
Yeah.
change how an announcer perceives the play?
Yeah. I love watching football. I started noticing that I thought that with the year that the Saints won the Super Bowl, there was a game against the Vikings. Brett Favre was with the Vikings, and there was some hits in that game where I was like, this is becoming, instead of like a game where I feel like it's really fun to watch, where I'm uncomfortable with this, and I think part of it is steroids. I mean, maybe guys are faster and bigger and stronger. Maybe it's working out. I mean, I don't know, but the intent on these hits, and because these guys are so much stronger, and then what we know about concussions, it does put some concern up there when I watch it, And I mean, I played sports. Sometimes, once in a while something happens that you really didn't mean to happen. You didn't want somebody to get hurt. You're just, like Alabama played Tennessee, and Jalen Waddle, the Alabama receiver, he's one of the best players in college football. His ankle was broke on a play where the guy just tackled him on a kickoff, and just the way that he was dragging him down, it just got hurt, and then you watch the Andy Dalton hit, and it's like, this is what I don't like about the game anymore. How do you discipline these guys? And how much more of this until they just say, hey, you know what? We can't even insure this anymore. I feel like they're very strict in college football on hits to the head, and some people get kicked out on accident. But I think you have to do that because you got to protect these kids as much as you can. And I mean, I wish the NFL would be stronger on that. You get kicked out for one of those hits, then you got to miss the beginning of the next game. I think that they ought to look at it, and if they can prove that it was intentional, maybe some of these crackback blocks and stuff like that, head-to-head contact, that maybe you're able to, add on additional penalties where they just take it out of the game. And you can tell when someone's like leading with the head and when they're not. I mean, accidents happen, but watching people get hurt playing sports is it's not fun to me because, like you guys, these athletes as people, they're your friends, and whether you know them or not, that helmet comes off or that jersey comes off and it's a person underneath there, I was at a friend's house on Saturday, and they had some people over that I didn't know, and they were like relishing in the fact that Waddle got hurt. And I thought, here's a 20-year-old kid that's in the hospital right now. That's whole life's been playing football. This guy's going to be a first-round pick, and you're a fan of this team. You probably didn't even go to college there, and you're happy that was the one good thing that you took out of that football game. And that's the thing I don't like about sports. And it's hard for me to bite my tongue sometimes, but at the end of the day, like no matter who wins or loses, it's still people playing. So I hope that in the NFL and college that they continue to try to figure out how to keep hits like the Andy Dalton hit out.
Mick, that's well said. Very well said.
Yep.
On that note, shall we wrap things up?
Let's shall.
By the way, Lakewood, New Jersey. Kevin Reichard, would you consider that to be in the Jersey Shore?
Close enough. Close enough. I mean, Lakewood isn't the major draw in that area anyway, and why not go for the branding? Yes.
Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Final thoughts. First, Kevin Reichard.
I am looking forward to the game tonight. We will be discussing it next week, and I'm looking forward to that too.
Final thought, Mick Gillispie.
Yeah, look, I've had fun. It's been fun talking baseball. I know that we're kind of getting to the end of our run here, but I'm still expecting the Dodgers to win the World Series. I'll be paying attention. I've enjoyed watching it, and always love hanging out with you guys. This hasn't been the kind of year that I wanted. It wasn't what I expected. You make the most out of it. I'm 18 chapters into a book. Back to work again, although I haven't gotten paid yet. Still, at least it'll come. Bring it on. But I'll tell you what, it's been stuff like this that has helped me keep my mental sanity through COVID-19. So I appreciate you guys for that.
Kevin, what is the status on our hiatus? Because it's true that we're going to step away for the off season.
We're going to have one wrap up next week, and then I think we'll play it by ear in terms of either big minor league baseball news or some sort of hot stove edition. But man, I'm looking at the calendar. Spring training, Mick's going to come sooner for us than we know.
Bring it on, man.
I
Bring it
know.
on.
I keep realizing, my goodness, we've got both the spring training books out. The spring training online site is picking up steam in terms of page views. And so it's Ballpark Digest, because everyone's already starting to look forward to next year. So once the World Series ends, and by the way, for those outside of baseball, we're on a news lockdown out of Major League Baseball because the commissioner's office famously says no news will be competing with the World Series. So we can expect a whole bunch of news rolling out after the World Series ends on so many levels.
Wait,
so anything big, we'll be back.
News lockdown. And then they just announced, by the way, do you understand how much debt that we have? So
I'm amazed Manfred said that in public. I just thought, did he really mean to say that? So
with him, you never know.
Maybe he thinks it's a strategy to ask for money for other people, but they've already renegotiated their TV deals. So there's really no end game that I can
Good luck with that. It's a bold strategy. So until next week, when we wrap things up for a little bit, and then I've got to find a way to persevere through the Michigan winter. From Mick Gillispie, Kevin Reichard, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, and this has been the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat.